The dust in Silver Creek, Montana, never gave anything back. It settled into clothes, hair, voices, and even memories. Thomas Hale knew that kind of dust. It had settled into his bones ever since his wife Martha passed 3 years ago. That September morning in 1872, he sat on his porch and watched the sun rise over the mountains. His ranch stretched wide, full of cattle and money and everything a man was supposed to want. But his heart felt empty. In his hands rested a letter that had become his last hope. A matrimonial agency in Chicago had promised him someone pure and untouched. Her name was Miss Catherine Mills, age 22. The agency described her as polite, Christian, obedient, and capable of being molded into the perfect frontier wife. They hinted softly that she was untouched. A true virgin bride. Thomas had paid extra for her. He wanted a fresh start, a woman who could give him the children Martha never could. "You're a fool, Thomas Hale," he muttered as he folded the letter. But still, he hoped. His house was ready. Clean floors, new curtains, freshly stocked shelves. He'd even worn his best black wool suit and polished boots. The whole ranch felt different, like something was waiting. By afternoon, he sat outside the general store, pocket watch ticking louder with every passing minute. The townspeople watched him from windows and saloon doors. Everyone knew what he was waiting for. At last, around 5 o'clock, the stagecoach rolled into town. Dust rose behind the wheels. The horses were sweating and tired. The driver apologized for the delay, but Thomas barely heard him. His eyes were locked onto the carriage door. A delicate hand appeared. His heart jumped. But the woman who stepped down was not the woman from the letters. She wasn't young or shy. She wasn't small or soft-spoken. She was curvy, strong-looking, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had already survived life. Her auburn hair caught the sunlight like living fire. Her eyes were sharp. Not frightened or innocent, but knowing. A woman who had lived a story no one warned her about. Her gaze found his immediately. "Thomas Hale?" she asked, voice steady, slightly rough, like whiskey and long roads. He blinked. "Yes." She nodded once. "I'm Margaret Doyle. Most folks call me Maggie." Thomas stared, confused. "You're not Miss Mills," he said quietly. "No," she answered, her tone calm. "Catherine Mills died of fever in Chicago 2 weeks ago." She pulled a folded paper from her pocket. "The agency sent me instead." His stomach dropped. "I paid for—" The words escaped before he could stop them. "A virgin?" she finished, loud enough for half the street to hear. "Young, untouched, and willing to be shaped into whatever you wanted." Whispers spread like wildfire. Thomas felt every eye on him. "This conversation shouldn't be held in the street," he said stiffly. "Come with me." She nodded and followed him to the wagon. The ride was silent at first. Only the horses' steady steps filled the space. Finally, Maggie spoke. "You're disappointed." "You're not what I expected," he answered honestly. "No," she said, looking forward, jaw tense. "I'm not. What you wanted died in Chicago." He gripped the reins. The agency had no right to send someone else. "But they did," she replied, "because to them I'm better than nothing, and to you—" She paused, then added softly, "I'm a problem." He didn't argue. He didn't have to. When they reached the ranch, she stepped down and studied the large 2-story home, the barns, the cattle, the land stretching wide like freedom. "It's bigger than I imagined," she said quietly. "It's too big for one person," he admitted. She turned to him, meeting his gaze without hesitation. "I know I'm not what you asked for," she said, "but I have nowhere else to go. I can cook, clean, mend, tend animals, survive storms and hard land. I don't faint, I don't complain, and I don't break easy." She took a breath. "Give me 1 month. If after that you want me gone, I'll leave without a word." Thomas studied her face. There was strength there, but also pain, and exhaustion hidden beneath pride. 1 month, he finally said. Something like relief flickered in her eyes. You'll take the room upstairs, he added. Second door on the right. Fair enough. Quote. She picked up her carpetbag, walked up the porch steps, and paused before entering his home. You paid for a virgin wife, she said softly, without turning. But maybe fate knew better. Then she disappeared inside, and Thomas stood in the fading sunlight, realizing nothing about this day or his future would be simple. His carefully planned life had just changed, and he wasn't sure whether to feel irritated or curious. Inside the house, her footsteps echoed along halls that had been silent for years, and for the first time in a long time, the empty home did not feel quite so empty. The next morning arrived with the sound of pots clattering in the kitchen. Thomas woke confused. For 3 years, mornings had been silent. He'd grown used to brewing bitter black coffee alone, eating whatever leftovers he found, and stepping into the cold dawn with nothing but the wind for company. But now, there was noise, life, someone else breathing inside his home. He stood in the hallway and listened. A woman humming, not soft and gentle, but strong, a tune for someone who had worked hard and survived harder things. He walked into the kitchen. Maggie stood at the stove, hair pinned up, sleeves rolled, working like she had been in that room her whole life. Her dress was simple calico, but it clung to a body built for real life, not delicate show. Coffee's ready, she said without turning. Breakfast will be done soon. Thomas blinked. You didn't have to. Yes, she interrupted, still not looking at him. I did. If I'm staying here a month, I'll work for my keep. Silence stretched between them until she finally faced him. She set a plate down, eggs, bacon, biscuits, buttered jam. That for me? He asked. No, she replied dryly. It's for the ghost of your dead bull out back. Sit. It startled a short laugh out of him, one he wasn't expecting. He sat. The food tasted real, seasoned, warm, thoughtful. Not duty, not survival, care. You can cook, he said finally. I can do a lot of things, she answered. A widow learns or she starves. She sipped her coffee, watching him, not shy, not nervous, just present. Tell me about this place, she said. Tell me what I've stepped into. He wiped his mouth with a cloth napkin. The Double H Ranch is one of the biggest in the territory. 500 head of cattle, good hands, good land. And you? She asked. What about me? What kind of man are you, Thomas Hale? Because a house tells stories, and this one tells me you've lived like someone waiting for something that never came. His throat tightened. Martha, he said quietly. So you did love her? Yes. And now you're trying to replace her? No, he said, sharper than intended. But Maggie didn't pull away. She nodded once. Good, she said, because I'm not a replacement. Before he could answer, hooves sounded outside. 3 ranch hands approached. Jake Morrison, older, steady, and the Svensson brothers, Eric and Lars, young, eager. Thomas stood near the door as they dismounted. Morning, Mr. Hale, Jake called. We're heading to the north pasture to check the herd. Maggie stepped out beside Thomas. Gentlemen, she greeted. Jake tipped his hat politely. The younger men stared, clearly curious. This is Mrs. Doyle, Thomas said. She'll be helping with the household and ranch. Maggie descended the steps with calm confidence. And you boys must be the Svenssons, she said, tone warm but firm. I may need help later repairing the chicken coop. After your regular work, of course. Eric straightened, surprised anyone had noticed his skills. Yes, ma'am. I'll do it. Good, she said. Respect gets respect. Remember that. As the men rode off, Thomas turned to her. You handled that well. She shrugged. I've lived around men my whole life. Most want one of 3 things: food, praise, or someone to fear. I choose which they get. Thomas found himself fighting a smile. As the day settled, they cleaned the house together in strange silence. Not tense, but unfamiliar. Their rhythm was awkward at first, then smoother. She reorganized the pantry, mended shirts he didn't realize were torn, and found the peaches Martha had canned, untouched since her death. "He loved her," Maggie murmured when she picked up the jar. "Yes. And you still do." "Yes." She set it back gently. "That's all right," she said softly. "Love doesn't disappear, it changes shape." Later that afternoon, they rode into town for supplies. Maggie sat upright in the wagon, chin slightly lifted, aware of eyes watching. Silver Creek slowed to stare. Whispers followed them like wind. "That's her. The replacement bride. She's no young virgin. No, she's trouble." But Maggie didn't shrink. She met every stare with one of her own. Steady, fearless. Inside the general store, 3 local women pretended to examine fabric. Mrs. Morrison stood behind the counter. "Well," she said coolly, "you must be Mrs. Doyle." "Yes," Maggie replied. "I'll need flour, sugar, butter, pork, beans, and bluing." Mrs. Morrison blinked at her boldness. One of the women, Mrs. Hartwell, spoke sharply. "Is it true you're from New Mexico?" "Yes." "And a widow?" "Yes." "How unfortunate to lose a husband so young." Maggie looked her straight in the eyes. "Almost as unfortunate as losing a wife," she answered calmly. "But we survive. That's what strong people do." Silence. Shock. Then, a small sound. Someone stifling a laugh. Thomas felt a strange warmth in his chest. Pride. Later, riding home as the sky turned gold and soft, he glanced at her. "You didn't let them intimidate you." "I've lived through worse than gossip," she said. "Words don't kill, but cowardice does." Thomas looked forward again. For years, he had lived like a man half asleep. But now, the air felt different. Alive. Dangerous. Hopeful. When they reached the ranch, the sky was burning pink over the mountains. Maggie paused at the porch steps and looked out over the land. "It's beautiful here," she whispered. "Hard," he said. "Hard can be beautiful." She turned to him, eyes softer than before. "Good night, Thomas." He watched her walk inside, her shadow stretching long in the golden light. And for the first time in years, Thomas Hale wondered if fate knew better than he did, because maybe, just maybe, the wrong bride was the right beginning. The storm rolled in fast. Thomas stood at the window of his study, watching dark clouds twist over the mountains. The wind howled, rattling the glass. Lightning flashed in the distance, lighting up the sky like a warning. He wasn't thinking about the ranch, or weather, or cattle. He was thinking about Maggie. 2 weeks had passed since she arrived, and everything in his life had changed. Quietly at first, then all at once. She moved through his home like she belonged there, filling empty spaces with warmth and noise and purpose. She laughed easily, argued honestly, and carried silence without fear. Some mornings, he woke before the sun and listened for her footsteps, and when he didn't hear them right away, his chest tightened in a way he couldn't explain. Tonight, something felt different. He couldn't name it, but it pressed against him like the cold storm air. Suddenly, lightning struck close, so close the ground trembled. A second later, darkness. The lamp flickered out. The whole house went silent. "Maggie?" he called. He heard movement downstairs. Her calm voice traveled through the shadows. "It's just the storm. I'll get another lamp." He took a step toward the door. Too fast. She reached the stair landing at the same moment. They nearly collided. His hand shot out, gripping her waist to steady her. Her breath hitched. In the dim outline of moonlight, their faces were inches apart. "This is unwise," she whispered. "Yes. You're still holding on." "Yes." Neither moved. Her body was warm beneath his hands, solid and real, not delicate, not breakable, alive. Slowly, she lifted her hand to his chest. His heartbeat thudded against her palm, strong and uneven. "Thomas," she breathed, "I'm not here to be what you ordered. I'm not innocent. I'm not untouched. I'm not easy. I know. And I'm not afraid to walk away if this is just loneliness talking." He swallowed hard. "This isn't loneliness." Lightning flashed again, and in that brief burst of light he saw something in her eyes that stole the breath from his lungs. Fear, hope, want. He didn't overthink, didn't hesitate. He bent his head and kissed her. The world outside roared with thunder, but inside that house, everything went still. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was hungry, desperate, full of years of silence and ache. When they finally pulled apart, neither of them moved, neither spoke. Then Maggie exhaled shakily. "That changes things," she whispered. "Yes, but not everything. Not yet." "No," he agreed. "Not yet." She touched his jaw lightly. "Then we move slow. Together." He nodded, and for the first time in years, his world felt less like survival and more like possibility. Days passed. Their routine settled deeper. Maggie cooked, worked alongside ranch hands, fixed things he didn't know needed fixing, and laughed with a sound that softened the walls. Thomas found himself watching her more than he should. The way she carried herself with quiet strength, the way she handled the ranch hands with stern kindness, the way she never apologized for existing. And every time their eyes met, something warm sparked between them. Something real. Then everything changed. A rider appeared on the ridge. Thomas felt it before he understood it. Danger. The stranger stopped in front of the house. Sharp eyes, expensive clothes, polished boots, power, and arrogance. "Afternoon," the man said, smiling without warmth. "Name's Silas Crowley. Heard you've got a new wife." Maggie went still beside Thomas. Crowley's gaze slid to her. Slow, knowing, claiming. "Well now," he murmured, "look who found herself a new home." Thomas stepped in front of her without thinking. "You know each other?" he asked. Maggie's voice was steady, too steady. "Yes, I knew him." Crowley tilted his head. "She left out a detail," he said softly. "Her husband owed me money, land, respect. When he died, she owed me instead." Thomas clenched his fists. "You need to leave." "Oh, I will," Crowley drawled, "but not before I say this. What you think you've won? What you think belongs to you?" His smile sharpened. "It doesn't." Then he rode off like a man certain he would return. Everything changed after that. There were cut fences, spooked cattle, missing supplies. Someone poisoned the salt for the herd. Jake caught it just in time. Trouble wasn't coming. It was already here. One night, the barn caught fire. Thomas ran into the flames without thinking. Horses screamed, rearing in terror. Smoke choked the air. Then a smaller figure appeared beside him. "Maggie!" She ignored him, grabbed Duchess's halter with bare hands, and dragged the panicking mare toward the open door. Flames cracked overhead. "Move!" Thomas shouted, pushing her through the smoke. They fell into the dirt outside just as the barn roof collapsed behind them. Maggie coughed hard, gripping his arm. "We saved them," she wheezed. "Yes." But something inside Thomas snapped. Crowley wasn't trying to scare them. He was trying to break them. And Thomas Hale had spent his whole life building something worth protecting. He wasn't about to lose it. Or her. 2 mornings later, a letter arrived. A formal challenge. A duel. Thomas read it twice, jaw tight. "He wants to force your hand," Maggie said quietly. "He wants to see you stand where he can hurt you." "I know." Quote, "And you're going to face him anyway." "Yes." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded, not in fear but understanding. "Then I'll stand beside you," she said softly. "Not behind you, not hidden. With you." He took her hand. "Maggie, I care for you." Her breath trembled, just once. "And I care for you," she whispered, "more than I planned." The duel drew a crowd. The tension was thick enough to cut. Crowley arrived smug, confident. Thomas faced him calm, steady. No fear left in his bones. The sheriff counted. The guns fired. Silence. Crowley fell first. Not dead, just stopped. Finished. Thomas lowered his pistol and walked to Maggie. No cheers, no noise, just relief. And something deeper. She placed her hand on his cheek. "You came back to me," she whispered. "I always will." And when he kissed her, there was no hesitation, no past, no doubt. Only a future, chosen, not paid for. Months later, Maggie stood on the porch beside Thomas and his little girl, Ellie, watching spring sunlight spill across the ranch. A new chapter, a new family, a new beginning built not on expectations, but on love earned through fire and persistence. Thomas wrapped an arm around her waist and kissed her temple. "You weren't the wife I ordered?" he murmured. "No," she said with a soft smile. "I was the one you needed." And with the mountains rising behind them and the land stretching wide with promise, Thomas knew one truth. Sometimes the wrong woman didn't ruin a man's life. Sometimes she saved it.